Good, right? I'm next to my wife, holding her hand, overseeing of the goodness and faithfulness of God all our days. And she and I buried our first son together. And I can sit there and hold the hand of my wife and declare that God is good no matter what.
Amen. Let's give God thanks. Other people have stories like that, and I think that is the power of the Christian life, right? That we have hope, even in what other moments where people would be helpless. Thank you, Brian. Bless you. All right, let's continue to stand and worship together.
Lord God, we thank you for where you've already taken us this morning. Lord, you reminded us that we don't come to you on the basis of anything we do. And we're not sustained in your love by anything we do. Salvation is of you from beginning to end, Lord. Thank God. Oh, but Lord, how you invite us to come in and enjoy the blessings of that salvation now. And so, Father, would you speak to each of us as we look at this sort of unusual passage this morning. Help us, Lord, to have open hearts. And Father, I believe there might be some people right here in this room this morning who are in hiding. They're afraid to come out. And Lord, I just pray they hear the Holy Spirit saying, don't be afraid to come out. Be honest with where you're at. And let me take care of everything. Do your work here this morning, Lord. We honor you. We revere you. And we give you our full attention now in Jesus' name. Amen. This is where God wants me to go. I had a really hard week. One of the hardest weeks I've had in a long time. And the reason for that is because on Monday, I found out that one of my very best friends in ministry had committed a moral failure and had been found out the day before, and last Sunday he resigned from his pastorate. He and his other pastor that he ministers with, called Rich and I on Monday. And so on Monday, Rich and I met with them, and we've been meeting with them all week. And it's very painful. It's very painful. I love this guy. I still do. But he'd been in hiding for a long time. He'd been in hiding an awful long time. And miserable. And finally it all came out. He didn't, it got found out. it was shocking to me and to the ones who know him, because this is a guy who, he seemed like the real deal. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, imagine hearing if Rich fell after we've known him for so long. You wouldn't even imagine Rich falling, because he seems like the real deal. And this guy seemed like the real deal. Like, if anyone's going to fall, it wouldn't be him. And so all week long I've been, weeping because of the pain it's causing, but also fearing for my own soul. Am I the real deal? Am I deceiving myself? And then you start wondering, can we trust anybody? Right? What does it mean to be the real deal? Are we the real deal? Or are we just going through the motions, putting on a show? Turn with me, if you would, the Gospel of Mark, chapter 11. We're going through this series in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus More Than Enough, and thank God that you are more than enough, Lord, because we are not enough. Oh, how we need you, Jesus, every one of us. And I've entitled the sermon, obviously, The Real Deal, and we're going to ask about, what does it even mean to be the real deal? Who is the real deal? Am I the real deal? And now let me say this, and if you don't hear anything else this morning, make sure you hear this sentence I'm about to say before we look at this, okay? And that's this. I believe with all my heart that my friend I just told you about is the real deal. Right. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you why I think that at the end of the sermon. We're in Mark chapter 11. Last week we opened into this chapter. It's the third and last part of the Gospel of Mark. This is it. Everything has led up to this last week of Jesus' life. Last week he entered into Jerusalem, and I showed you the picture of Jerusalem, this magnificent city. And he comes in and everyone is cheering, but Jesus is weeping. And then it says he enters into the temple, which would be this gate right here that's blocked up now. It's not that actual gate. The actual gate Jesus entered is buried underground. You actually can see it when, not that gate, but you can see the wall where it came from back in the day. It's way underground. This is one built many centuries later. But anyway, it's the same idea, same location. He would have come through these gates and into the temple. And then all we read last week in verse 11 is that he looked around. And the verb tense means he looked around for a while, the imperfect. And so he's checking it out, and now this morning we're going to see what he thought about what he saw. And so we are in Mark chapter 11, starting in verse 12. We read that the next day, now this is Monday, last week of Jesus' life, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. And seeing in the distance a fig tree and leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. Now when he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs. And then he said to the tree, "May no one eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard him say it. On reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple courts. And instead of just looking around, he gets pretty active. He begins driving out those who were buying and selling there. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. And they would not allow anyone to he would not allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple courts. And as he taught them, he said, "Is it not written, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations, but you have made it a den of robbers"? And the chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this, and they began looking for a way to kill him, for they feared him, because the whole crowd was amazed at his teaching. Now when evening came, Jesus and his disciples went out of the city. In the morning, Tuesday, as they went along, they saw the fig tree from the day before, withered from the roots. Peter remembered, he said to Jesus, "Rabbi, look, that fig tree you cursed, it's withered." "Have faith in God," Jesus answered. "Truly I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, 'Go throw yourself into the sea,' and doesn't doubt it in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you've received it and it will be yours." Carte blanche, right? Pray whatever we want. No, I'm kidding. We'll get there. "And when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive them, so that your Father in heaven may forgive you your sins." The first thing I want you to notice, and why I'm going through this far into the text, is the structure of what we've just read, because it's very important to interpret it correctly. This is what's called a Markan sandwich. It's a unique thing Mark does. He does it several times in his gospel. What's a Markan sandwich? Well, it's 2 episodes that are presented with the first episode, second episode, back to the first episode, a sandwich. So we've got the fig tree slice, right? He talks about a fig tree. He's ticked off at a fig tree. Then we have the temple cleansing. He's ticked off in the temple. That's the middle. And then we're back to the fig tree. It's a Markan sandwich. Why is that important? Here's why it's important. The point of the Markan sandwich is that you won't understand the first story, the fig tree, unless you understand the second story. The middle story gives you the interpretive key to properly understand the first story. You need both of them together in order to understand what is going on here. And that's important because there are people who've left the faith over the fig tree thing, believe it or not. And I'll get to that. So let's look at it. Verse 12. The next day as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. I like that right off the bat. Jesus is like us. He's human. He's hungry. He's got some, he's got some cravings just like we do. I love that. And he's going to have a very busy day, so he needs to eat just like us. He's human. Don't forget Jesus is human. And then verse 13. So being hungry, he looks in the distance and he goes, whoa, sweet. There's a fig tree and it's got leaves on it. So he goes over there to find if it had any fruit. But when he got there were nothing but leaves. Because it's not the season for figs. And then he says to the tree, may no one ever eat fruit from you again. Now, why am I saying it that way? I'll tell you why I'm saying it that way. In just a moment. And then the disciples hear it. And that's important too. All right, so let's take a look at all of this. He gets to the fig tree and he's looking for fruit. He's hungry. Right? Now he looks and he gets there, but he doesn't find anything. Now, he was expecting fruit. Why? Because there were leaves on it. Passover season, it's the spring. It's not the time, like Mark tells us, not the time for figs, for the ripe fig. But it is time for the early fig. Now, notice my translation says, he went to find if it had any fruit. Some of your translations say, went to see if it had anything. That's what the Greek says. The Greek doesn't say fruit. That gets you thinking figs. He's not looking for the fig. It's not the season for the fig. What's he looking for? Well, usually when there were green leaves, it meant that there was the early bud, which was the beginning of what would become the fig, and that actually was edible. And the leaf tells you that I'm fruitful, is what the leaves are saying. I'm alive and fruitful. So he sees this thing and it increases his hope. He goes over. When he gets there, the outward appearance of the plant doesn't match the inner reality of the plant. It says outwardly, I'm fruitful, but when he gets there, there's no fruit. Now what's interesting is then, I look at this and I say, wow, he seems to overreact, right? Verse 14. May no one ever eat fruit from you again. This is a really unusual Greek grammar here, and I know the grammar bores some of you, but this is really important to interpret it correctly. Listen to me now. In Greek, there's something called mood. The mood tells you what the person feels like as they're saying this. This is one of the rarest moods. You almost never find it. It's extremely rare in the New Testament, and when you find it, it's there for a reason. It's the optative mood. The optative mood is the mood of wishing. When it's in a positive sense, it's a positive wish. When it's in a negative sense, it's a curse. So Jesus is literally cursing this fig tree. And that's why I say it the way I did. May no one ever eat fruit from you again. What is he, hangry? Anybody ever get hangry? I get hangry all the time. Ask my wife. I love to eat, and when I get